Hi all. Today we are going to discuss the methods for learning multiple classes. Before that, let's see what is a binary classification problem and what is a multi-class classification problem. Okay? In binary classification problem, if there is an input, that is we want to predict the label to which class X belongs to. In binary classification problem, we want to predict in which class X belongs to. Here only two labels, that is X is labeled with either 1 or 0. For example, suppose X is a fruit and we want to classify this fruit as either orange or apple. That is, if X is orange, it is labeled with 1, and if X is apple, it is labeled with 0. So this kind of problems are binary classification problems. Okay. Now let's see what is multi-class classification problem. In multi-class classification problem, there are many classes. More than two classes. There are more than two classes. That is, we want to classify X into many classes. Say class 1, class 2, etc. Class n. There are n classes are there. Okay. For example, X as a fruit. Okay. And we want to classify this fruit whether it is an orange or apple or lemon or mango. So these kind of problems are multi-class classification problems. Okay. Now let's see how these multi-class classification problems are handled. Okay. So there are two methods. One versus all method and one versus one method. Okay. Now let's see how these methods are. So what is one versus all method? Okay. Let's see an example. Suppose X. We want to classify X into either A or B or C. So let's label A as class 1, B as class 2 and C as class 3. Here you can see that there are three classes, class A, B and C. So what we do is we write three hypotheses. That is, first hypothesis H1 of X for class A. That is, H1 of X will classify the given input X into A or otherwise. Okay, that is, first hypothesis will classify X into A or otherwise. So otherwise means maybe it belongs to B or C. It will classify it as negative sample. If it belongs to A, it will classify it as positive sample. Okay, that is what first hypothesis H1 of X will do. And for second class, we write a second hypothesis H2 of X. So what this hypothesis do is, it classify our input X into B or otherwise. So B, if it belongs to class B, it is a positive sample. Otherwise, it is a negative sample. Here, otherwise means it maybe belongs to either A or C. Okay. So next, our third hypothesis H3 of X, that is for this class. Okay. So our third hypothesis H3 of X will classify our given input into either C or otherwise. Okay. If X belongs to C, it will be considered as positive sample. Otherwise, it will be considered as negative sample. So let us generalize this method. That is, if there are n classes, n hypothesis will be there. And each hypothesis Hi of X is 1 if X is in the class Ci and 0 otherwise. Okay. So this is what happens in the one versus all method. Now let's see one versus one method. Suppose if there are k different labels, we construct k into k minus 1 the whole divided by 2 hypothesis. For example, suppose x1 is to be classified into 4 classes A, B, C and D. Okay, here 4 classes are there. That is k is equal to 4. So, how many hypotheses we want to construct? We want to construct k into k minus 1 the whole divided by 2. That is 4 into 4 minus 1 the whole divided by 2. So, total 6 hypotheses we have to construct. So, what are these 6 hypotheses? That is, we consider each pair of classes and construct hypothesis for each pair of classes. That is, the first we consider 2 classes, that is A and B. We pair A and B and construct a first hypothesis H1 of X to classify whether X belongs to A or B. And the second hypothesis H2 of X which classify X to either B or C. And the third hypothesis H3 of X which classify X to C or D. Another hypothesis H4 of X which classify into A or C, and next classifier H4 and here H5 of X, and finally H6 of X which classify into A or D. Okay, so these are 6 classifiers. Okay, that is if k is equal to 4, we have to consider 6 classifiers. Okay, so now what we do is we apply all these hypotheses one by one to the input X. We apply each of these 6 classifiers one by one to X and then check which class get majority voting, and the class which get majority voting will be the class of X. Okay, that's all about multi-class classification. Okay, thank you. If you understood this topic, please like and subscribe my channel.